Guess what? I wrote a course, and it's called Women Who Lead, and you can find it at www.aimwithus.com. And all you have to do is click on courses, and you and I can spend some really quality time together learning how to make every interaction safe, logical, fun, and memorable. And guess what, guys? It would work for you too. I hope to see you there.
Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. It is going to be another fabulous episode today, and my new friend Deepak and I are going to have a great time. But before we jump in, I need you to follow this podcast. It makes such a difference, and it will change everything about your perspective because we all need a little more productive joy in our lives. So hit that subscribe or follow button depending on where you are and get ready for great episodes like today. So my new friend, Deepak Parashar, is lots of things. So he's a world traveler, as in has been to Spain 30 times and has been to Turkey 15 and has been doing that his entire life. He's also been a husband since 1991, but what's cool about that is it was an arranged marriage where they only met once with the parents there too, and then had one other date before they got engaged. He has two grown children who are doing beautiful things on their own. He's a veteran of the energy industry, which is a pretty cool way that he ended up where he is now, and he's going to tell us all about that. He's a British-trained electrical engineer who has managed lots of power initiatives, and today he's a guest on Productive Joy. Deepak, welcome to Productive Joy.
Yeah. So thank you, first of all, Doc, for having me. And namaste, a big namaste to all our friends. It's an honor to be on your show.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. So we have to convince people. I know you have a great story, and we're going to jump right into that. However, you've got to say something to these people in like 30 seconds to get them super excited about all the things they're going to learn from you. So what would you say in like 30 seconds to get them excited?
So first of all, thanks for the introduction. I am an energy industry veteran. My life materially shifted when I ran into His Holiness, the Dalai Lama of Tibet, a flight to Tokyo in 2009. And that launched me down a path of very deep research on how energy interconnects all aspects of our existence under the auspices of divinity. So it's an engineer's viewpoint, but it was an experiential journey. And then ultimately I met His Holiness a second time because I wanted to go present my findings to him. And that itself was a very interesting run. If there's one message I have to say to everyone is each of you, there's such resident divinity in each one of you, and people are just waiting to hear what you have to say. So just keep that in the back of your mind. This is after 14 years of interconnected research, touching 38 countries around the globe.
Yeah, you're not making this stuff up. You have spent your whole life really researching and figuring it out. So let's back up. You get on a flight because you are a world traveler and you do lots of that travel stuff. And the Dalai Lama is just sitting there with you? Like, how does that happen?
So let me start. Let's just get into the discussion on His Holiness. So I was traveling to India. I was in Delhi for some client meetings with some energy clients on some power initiatives. And I then had to carry on to Korea from there. So boarded a Japan Airlines flight from Delhi to Tokyo and then transiting and then, moving on to Busan. So, and I'm going to try and explain what happened on this journey. So we get on the jet and I'm sitting on the left side and there was a gentleman sitting next to me. Now, the right side, we waited for a while for the boarding to take place and, the right side was empty. So eventually after 20 minutes, I asked the air hostess, I said, can we spread out a little bit? Seems like you're all done. And she said, no, there's some people coming. I said, okay, fine. And sure enough, about 20 people, you suddenly see this group of people come in and some are wearing suits. And then you start to see these robes. And I'm looking and I tell you, Doc, right across from me comes and says, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama of Tibet. And I'm sitting there saying, oh, this is interesting. And I ultimately had a full view of him, direct view for 11 hours. And now, and being a senior project director, leading large energy initiatives, my first reaction was, I have to go get his blessings. And so as the flight took off, and this was an evening flight, with early landing in Tokyo. So the first thing, as the hostess came around, and they're very polite hostesses, and I said, "Hey, is there any way I can go see and get his blessings?" And she very politely told me, she said, "Sir, we're not allowed to speak with them." I think in a very nice way, she was telling me, "Pipe down,
Yep.
settle down,
Cool down, sir.
settle down, sir." So okay, but I said, "No, no, no, I gotta try." So what I did, Doc, is I wrote a note. And I said, "Can you send it to whoever is concerned that if I can just come across and get his blessings?" And I had no idea what became of that note. She took it from me, and but I never heard anything more about it. So anyway, it was a night flight. We settled down, right? And the next morning, I estimate it was probably an hour and a half before we landed in Tokyo. So I was standing at the galley, close to the galley. And they said, "Let me just turn around and see what His Holiness is doing." And I
Now, does he take his shoes off? Like, I have questions.
So I turned around, and the monk that was sitting next to His Holiness, I think he had gone somewhere, and I see this beautiful moon face, this lovely face radiating such beauty, such divinity, and it's out of the aisle and he's looking at me directly, and I'm standing there, and I said, "Wait a minute, it's only me." So I in I don't recall doing a namaste or doing a bow or something. But I acknowledged him briefly, and he gave me this lovely smile. And that's it, Doc. I said, "I'm just going in."
Yeah, he seems welcoming and like a good guy. Let's do it.
He seems to be welcoming. So I started to head towards him. And a gentleman sitting on the side said, "So what do you want?" I said, "I just want to take his blessings." And he says, "Okay, go ahead." And next thing, Doc, kneeling in front of His Holiness, and I'm telling him, "Sir, I know this is no coincidence because I just picked up recently a key scripture of Hinduism." And I tell you, Doc, you talk about the interconnectedness of life. There are so many scriptures. The one that I picked up was actually written by his close friend. And they were both located in the same town. This was Swami Chinmayanand. And I didn't make that connection until I met His Holiness the second time, this time at his official residence in Dharamshala, in North India. That was
And not in an airplane.
Yeah, non. So I then, His Holiness is telling me, "Oh, you're reading the Gita. That's wonderful." And, I took his blessings. The way they bless you is that he takes your hands in his palms. And Doc, I have no doubt that he probably this great sage shot some energy in me because it just materially shifted my outlook.
Wow.
Now what happened was I get back to my seat. We must have been about 20 minutes away from landing. And I saw the air hostesses now all walk past him in single file, and they all kept their heads just beneath his. And he blessed each one as they went along. And they all ran back into the galley, and I could hear them crying. In fact, I could see from my angle that, it was just
Very emotional.
What a joyful moment. I mean, I'm sitting here also in tears. And as we came in for landing, we broke cloud cover, and, it was low cloud cover, and suddenly you could see the ground, coming in. And I looked over, and His Holiness, he had raised his rosary beads, and he was praying. And, they say that, the land is imbibed with the magical properties.
Sure.
And, this was a clear demonstration. And I remember saying to myself, it doesn't get any better in life than this. It was just wonderful. So that launched me down, very deep research across the globe. And eventually I released a book called Life to Spiritual Essence. Now, what happened was 10 years into the research, I said, I want to go present my findings to His Holiness. In, the innocence of youth and the innocence of
I know,
life,
you just didn't know to say that anybody could possibly say no. So here you go.
So I got in touch with this, and they politely wrote back and said, "Look, he's a little old, but, you're most welcome to come up and get his blessings." And I said, "Oh boy, how about that?" And I said, "But can I bring some family members?" Albeit, it's going to be a very limited group. And they said, "Sure." And so ultimately, my father was Delhi based, and my son and I flew from here. And so now we go up into his establishment. And, you get through. So this is now March of 2019. This is 10 years after the initial meeting. And you go in there, and of course you get through all the procedures. And this time, Doc, it's open air, right? Where we were standing out in the open air, and there was a veranda, and they put a chair out there. And all of a sudden he emerges, and he's walking slowly, and he was, doing his namaste to some refugees and other people who were there. And I tell you, Doc, obviously my awareness had grown in some way because I could feel this just all enveloping divinity just hit me. It was the most impossible, detached, yet all enveloping, and this is open air. So clearly, so anyway, we get in line, and I went first. My son came next, and my father was. And I could see that, what they do is he was holding my father's hand, my hand, but he was really interested in, I could see he was looking at my father. And, Doc, they don't tell you these things, but these monks are so wonderfully, their training. They can transcend space and time, and they can actually see your entire existence at different stages in your life. But they never tell you this, because he's got this public cloak of humor about him, and he's so they hide it beneath it. And, there I am telling him, sir, you've changed my life, and he's squeezing my hand, but I'm sure he was giving, further blessings. And then we met other people, who had come. And, Doc, in an environment like this, these are some of those magnetic moments in life that come when you realize that you're part of something so much larger than yourself. And there was a couple from Florida, and the lady had brought the ashes of her son for blessings from His Holiness. And now, of course, we've become lifelong friends, and so we get through that. We came down into the main monastery complex, and we were walking around, and out of the blue, this gentleman comes up and he says, "Oh, who are you people?" and so forth. And we started talking. Doc, this was a security guard in the place, and we ended up chatting with him for half an hour. And I'm telling you, Doc, I realized that all the research I had done, and across the globe, and running through establishments, spiritual, religious, holistic, this gentleman, this Tibetan security guard, his level of divinity was way above mine. You know why, Doc? It was one of the great lessons learned that when you're part of a holistic, beautiful system, that you become entrenched or caught up within that divinity. So it was, and it was such a wonderful lesson. And then we exited out there. And
Oh, I love it. Well, let's back up and kind of double click on a couple things, because you have a couple just lessons, I think, in your story that are important to call out. So the biggest one being, it's okay to ask for what you need, right? So you recognize that you had a once in a lifetime experience on this plane to get to talk to him, to get to receive those blessings, and you didn't shy away from it, and you didn't say, "Oh, well, that's not for me." You recognized that you could ask, and the worst anybody could say is no. I think that's the number one lesson that I hear from your story. And then the second thing that I hear is that once that happens, once you say yes to something, once you go all in, it can have a ripple effect. And that's the beautiful part of this, right? So I started Productive Joy as a space where people could figure out how to take work and life and all the stuff that we have to do and marry it with joy so that you aren't miserable all the time. And you've done something very similar with energy, and not just electrical engineering energy, but then also just our spiritual energy and who we are. And those two things together are creating a beautiful example of productive joy. So that's my question for you, is if you had to describe productive joy based on your experiences, based on your exposure to the Dalai Lama and all of these great things, how would you describe productive joy?
So that's a great question. So if I look at myself after, because the first meeting was in 2009 and it's now 2025, the first thing, in answering your question on, it's always okay to ask, and this is a message that I learned, is that what people perceive as a rejection is in fact an opportunity to go do something else.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to look at it. This is that half glass full concept that people talk about. But here's where I am, Doc, after all this interconnected global research, and I met, people, I met a lot of very, very interesting across the planet. is that while spiritually, I have now, thanks to, a product of experts who came together to help me during the journey. And this is one of those things when you ask for help, there's so many wonderful people that showed up to help me compile this book. Spiritually, I have a fairly decent understanding, including 15 religions and holistic and spiritual and the rest. But meditatively, I'm just a relative beginner in terms of the true knowledge of the universe. But then there's the journey ahead because my goal, my personal goal is to become a spiritual billionaire.
Yeah. Oh, nice. That's a good goal.
And I have picked where even, for example, with the book that I've come out with, all proceeds are being given to the underprivileged and to poor children. I have no interest in material gifts, but this is just my starting point. I'm now committed to something much larger than myself. And that is sheer productive joy every single day. And I tell you, Doc, when you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're lying in bed smiling like a Cheshire cat, wondering why you're smiling, that's the universe telling you that you're doing something right.
I agree. And I am an early riser. And when I wake up in the morning, I am so grateful for just the idea that I did wake up another day, right? Like we lived to see another day, and we have that opportunity to find the joy in all the things. And I love that you are figuring that out every single day and that you're seeking it. And I also love that you've written a book that will help people do the same. So tell us the title of your book and where people might find it if they were interested.
So the book is called Life, the Spiritual Essence. And I released it on Amazon and other platforms last year, sometime in February. All they have to do is look up Deepak Parashar, the Spiritual Essence. There aren't too many Deepak Parashar. So fortunately, you should find
You know
me
what?
in
It's
there.
good to be unique. I appreciate that fully. Okay, so life, a spiritual essence. I love I love the connection that you have made between the engineering mind and the spiritual mind, because sometimes we separate those two exclusively, right? We say, all right, I think like this or I think like that. And what you've discovered is that no, those two things actually work really well together. So I just want to rewind a little bit, because at the beginning, you told me that you have managed power initiatives all over the world, and you had to create cross functional teams that were from all different countries with all different agendas, essentially, for the same project. How do you wrangle something like that? Like, how do you get all these different brilliant minds to be on the same page with the same destination in mind?
So my personal philosophy is that if things go right, they get the credit. And if things go wrong, I take the blame. And the other thing, that's a great question, Doc, is that when you're working with these large teams and I always make it a point to get to know one individually, their strengths, their weaknesses, and then I'd be able to support their weaknesses with the strengths of other people. And the other thing was that when you instill a confidence into a team, that no matter how difficult or challenging an issue is. And, when you're working on these large power plants, I mean, believe me, we have to go through a lot of issues, technical, commercial, legal,
Sure.
other. But I always had this one simple principle that when you get on a conference call, so like, for example, we get on a Teams call or a Zoom call, and there's, people from 15 countries, all at once. Answer was always within the expertise of the room. And all you had to do was to listen. And
Yeah.
if you listen, you could begin to understand that there's something going on here. And we always came up with very creative solutions within a timely window.
Which is
That's
beautiful. And that's the sign of a great leader, right? A great leader recognizes that the brilliance is in the room and that you don't have to have all the answers. It's just your job to orchestrate the brilliance and get them to think through things and come up with the best possible answer. I think that is also the sign, not just of a good leader, but of somebody who is self-confident enough to recognize that you don't have to hold all the answers. I think the people that I have come across that struggle with this are often insecure due to circumstances, right? Like not really any fault of their own, except that they haven't chosen to push past it, right? We all have things that have made us insecure or that have made us shy away from big choices. But what you're teaching us and what you're reiterating right now is that the confidence comes from the fact that you don't have to have all the answers and it's okay for somebody else to shine brighter. I love what you said. If things go right, that's for them. That's on them. If things go wrong, that's on me. That's impressive. So who taught you that? Where did you learn that? Because you've been doing this for a very long time. Who showed you that that was the right way to lead?
I would say my father. He was the Indian head of a British multinational. And at some point, he was picked by the government of India to go on trade missions across different countries. In fact, he met George Bush. He met Prince Charles. He just met, he met Indira Gandhi. He was that level of executive. I was so impressed with his work diligence. I mean, he would start up at 5 in the morning. I start up at 4 every day. And I think that's where, as you watch your parents, and I think that's where the journey began.
Well, and you were taught well, but then you did beautiful things with it, right? Like we can stop learning if we choose to and think that we've arrived. You never thought that. And even the 10 years between your first meeting and your second meeting was a great testament in I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago, and that's by choice. I think there's a huge lesson in that too. If you think about who's listening right now, these are leaders who want to strategically create productive joy in their spaces. And those spaces might be personal or professional or both, but that's something that you did. You created productive joy between 2009 and 2025, really. And you're continuing to do that. So that's impressive, sir. Well done.
Yes, and not only that, though, well, the more I seek, the more I realize how little I know.
Yeah, same.
And every day is, there's a new learning experience, and you can adopt various methodologies to improve yourself, and then check yourself back the next day to see how you featured, and it's open field. It's up to you to how you're energetically your being is, that you automatically pick a path that is commensurate with it,
Yeah, that's
and then
beautiful.
go. Just go with it.
I love it. Well, Deepak, thank you.
Fearless.
Thank you for sharing your brilliance on productive joy. Thank you for writing a book so that people can learn more. Thank you for being the kind of person that others would want to follow. That's special and impressive.
Oh, no, not at all. Don't. But I have to tell you, Doc, you've become my best friend, and I'm going to invite you to my place. But then you're going to say all of this to my wife.
Okay. Yes, she needs to hear it. That's right.
She needs to hear it. Nobody in this household is allowed to praise me because I start to inflate.
Oh, yeah. We got to keep you grounded, sir. We got to keep
You got to keep
for
it.
sure. Well, I do have a couple rapid fire questions for you. Are you willing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Oh, here goes. This is going to be fun. What is your definition of fun?
Oh, fun filled. And if you start up early in the morning and you get into synchronicity with the rhythms of nature, because this is the time where there's such natural divinity in the air, and people naturally lend themselves to holistic activities at the time. So I start very early, and then I go out and I hear the birds, and there's a party going on outside, and you just have to join that party and just listen. It's just so wonderful. And when you do that, it gives you options for the day. And as they always say, measure your success in small steps. And so I'll plan my day. I'll have 5, 6 things I have to do, and then I successfully tick them off. And if I haven't, I have a plan how to address the unfinished business the next day. One critical thing: if you can, exercise every single day.
Amen.
Whatever you can manage, do it, and you will see a marked difference in the vibrancy, vibrancy.
I love the way you said there's a party going on outside and we need to join it, because I think you can be annoyed with the noise that the birds are making, or you can join in and sing with them. And I love the idea of choosing to sing with them, right? Like that's beautiful. That paints such a picture. My father-in-law, for his birthday, got a Bird Buddy bird feeder. I don't know if you've seen those, but you hook them up to your phone and it can video them. You can name the birds. You recognize when they come back. And to me, that's exactly what you just described, is the party that would be going on at the bird feeder. That's pretty great.
In fact, music and rhythm are considered divine arts, in scriptures and, great philosophical writings. So, it's a brilliant start.
I love it. I love it. Okay, next question. How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
So I have I devised a holistic stress management system for myself. And, this was again after, years of research. And what I did, Doc, is I split the a one pager into 6 action-oriented quadrants of the mind with about 25 points in there. And so what I do is every morning, and the moment I get up, is I check how I featured against each of these points the previous day. So, for example, if I was driving down the road and I yelled at somebody, and then I say, "Oh, I shouldn't have done," and what you really do is you're rewiring the circuitry in your brain. It's very subliminal, and I've been testing it for 7 years, and it's wonderful. I every day I'm able to ground myself, tell myself that stay humble in your life, keep that ego tucked into your pocket, and you'll do wondrous things.
Yeah, if we all kept our egos tucked in our pockets, we'd all be better off. I think you're right. Okay, how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
So again, it's the holistic management system. What happens, Doc? In life, so many people will tell you, "Oh, just do it, just do it, just you can do it once, you can do it twice, you can do it 3 times." But ultimately, you're going to come back to your basic energetic or makeup of who you are as a person. So if I'm having a bad day, what I do is I can accordingly, to the best extent I can, minimize my interactions with people such that I'm not expressing irritability. I'll do more introspective tasks, more, scientific or more, things that need much more introspection. And so but as a minimum, I stay within a boundary. And for example, if you're annoyed, just be quiet, hold off, and ultimately just pass it. There's a Swami, he told me that when he gets angry, he takes his anger and he puts it into a balloon, then he watches it fly away. And he says,
Oh,
and he says 30 seconds later, he's smiling.
that's awesome.
It's so cool.
Well, and I really like the concept. I ask this question every time, and my answers are always a little different, but this one's unique in the minimize your interactions with others so that you're not projecting your bad mood on other people. I think that's genius and really self-aware. So well done. All right, last question. And this one's going to be a tough one because you have said all kinds of brilliant things. But people by nature, their brains can really only hold on to one major idea. So, what's the major thing that you want to leave our Productive Joy listeners with today?
I would say I wish I had done a better job of this, but I was talking to Nuremberg prosecutor Benjamin Ferencz. He was year and a half back. He was the last surviving prosecutor of the trials, and he told me he goes in every single day. He would sit with each of his children and ask them, "Tell me what you did for humanity today."
Well,
Every single day. And in fact, I know his son. And that taught me that empower our youth. And then conversely, it is our responsibility to look after our respected elders, in their times of frailty and their times of age, because they've nurtured us through and through. And last but not the least, Doc, your voice is important. Believe you me, there is such divinity in each one of you. Take it from me. And if you want to chat about it, call me and I'll tell you a little bit more. But I've researched it, I've seen it in great people, and I've come to understand it. And so don't be afraid. Step out of yourself. And once you start living beyond your comfort zone, you will see how the universe opens up for you.
what a beautiful thing to leave us with, Deepak. We've got to take care of each other. And the more we take care of each other, the more we're taken care of. So thank you for spending your time with our Productive Joy listeners today. You were a gift.
No, no, thank you. It's an honor to be on your show. Namaste, and thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. And for all of our listeners, I told you guys, it just gets better and better. And so something that Deepak said today, I am sure will resonate with you, whether it's that we need to take care of both the young and the old, or we need to recognize that we've got these divine experiences and we just have to accept them. Or maybe it's as a leader, I need to accept what goes wrong as my responsibility and make sure that the credit goes to my team for everything else. Thank you, Deepak, for all of the brilliance. Listeners, do something with it. My challenge to you today and always is to figure out a way to take these nuggets and turn fun into action.